He was the king of soul, the voice behind some of the greatest songs in history, but behind the music was a dark, unanswered question, and now, after decades, the truth has surfaced. Join us as we unravel the shocking truth about Sam Cooke's final moments. A death wrapped in secrets. The passing of musician Sam Cooke was definitely not a straightforward case. Nearly 60 years later, people are still curious about what really took place that night. December 11, 1964. Guests at the $3 a night Hacienda Motel didn't hear the gunshots that went off just after 3 a.m. Gun violence was sadly a regular occurrence in this area of South Central Los Angeles. Even the police appeared somewhat indifferent when they found a dead man, bloody and naked except for a sport coat and one shoe, leaning against the door of the motel manager's office. Norman Edelin, one of the few men of color serving the LAPD precinct in 1964, in an interview with People, said that the attitude was, "Oh well, another person got shot. It took hours for the authorities to discover the man's identity." And that's when the shock began to set in. The deceased was 33-year-old Sam Cooke, a soul music pioneer who infused gospel grandeur into American popular music with hits like You Send Me, Wonderful World, and Another Saturday Night, helping artists such as Aretha Franklin and James Brown transition from the church to the charts. It seemed unimaginable that one of music's most divine voices would meet such a tragic fate. For over 50 years, the unclear details surrounding Cooke's murder have puzzled his family, friends, and fans. Now, as a new film, One Night in Miami, featuring Hamilton star Leslie Odom Jr. as the singer, highlights the crucial role Cooke and his music played in the civil rights movement. Questions about his mysterious passing are coming back to the forefront. The singer enjoyed his final night alive having dinner at Martoni's, a stylish restaurant in LA that serves as a hangout for Hollywood's music stars. He was accompanied by his close friend and longtime producer Al Schmidt, along with Schmidt's wife. They enjoyed martinis, and Cooke made his way to the bar, where he chatted with friends from the industry and happily waved around a bundle of $5,000 cash, his earnings from a recent series of concerts. Schmidt last saw him getting friendly with a woman he didn't know. She was 22-year-old Elisa Boyer. Cooke and Schmidt had plans to meet at a nightclub named PJ's later that evening. Schmidt recalled in an interview that Sam never showed up. He went home. He found out later he arrived about 15 minutes after him, just before closing time, but they wouldn't let him in. Cooke was with the girl he had seen earlier. Cooke drove Boyer 15 miles south to the Hacienda Motel, where they checked in shortly after 2:35 a.m., signing the register as husband and wife. The real Mrs. Cooke, Barbara Campbell, mother of his two kids, Linda and Tracy, was somewhere else, likely aware of his late-night adventures. What happened next is still a mystery. Boyer alleged that Cooke dragged her into the bedroom, pinned her down on the bed, and started to rip off her clothes. She recounted to the police that she knew he was going to assault her. According to her account, Cooke took off his clothes and went into the bathroom, at which point she grabbed her garments from a pile on the floor. In her state of confusion, Boyer claims she also picked up Cooke's clothes, which had his wallet and cash inside. She dashed down the street to a nearby phone booth and made a frantic call to the police, informing the dispatcher that she had been kidnapped. Cooke reportedly became furious when he realized that both Boyer and his clothes were missing. Fueled by rage and alcohol, he wrapped himself in the sport coat, his only remaining item of clothing, and confronted the motel manager, 55-year-old Bertha Franklin, whom Cooke thought was protecting Boyer. Franklin stated that the situation escalated into violence, with Cooke breaking down her door and choking her. Franklin testified that he seized both of her arms and began twisting them and asked her where Boyer was. "I started kicking. I tried to bite him through the jacket. I was fighting, biting, scratching, doing everything I could." Franklin grabbed her pistol and fired 3 shots. 2 missed, but 1 struck Cooke's heart and lungs. Cooke gasped, "Lady, you shot me!" before collapsing dead. In the 2017 documentary Lady You Shot Me, forensic pathologist Dr. Cyril H. Wecht argued that Cooke's passing was not justifiable homicide because Cooke, wearing only a sport coat, had no weapon and Franklin was not in fear for her life. Many people who were close to the singer couldn't believe the official explanation. To them, his violent and irrational actions were completely out of character for the kind and gentle man they cherished. They suspect that his passing was orchestrated, arguing that Boyer was a worker colluding with the motel manager to rob Cooke. The Hacienda Motel was notorious for being a hotspot for pimps. According to this theory, Boyer lured him there. Why else would Cooke go so far out of his way, passing by many other hotels that would have suited his celebrity status? Although there's no solid proof to back this claim, Franklin had a history as a madam and a criminal record. Boyer was arrested for prostitution shortly after Cooke's passing and was later convicted of second-degree murder in 1979 after another shooting incident. The $5,000 Cooke had on him the night he passed was never found. Other aspects of the case also seemed inconsistent. Cooke was shot with a .22 caliber gun, but the firearm registered to Franklin was a .32 caliber. The bullet that went through his body was collected as police evidence, but then mysteriously disappeared. His autopsy showed a 2-inch bump on his head. Franklin stated that after shooting him, she dropped the gun and hit him with a wooden broom handle. However, the gun still had several bullets in it. If Franklin was truly scared for her life, she wouldn't abandon the loaded gun she had just used in favor of a stick. When she testified in front of cameras 5 days after the murder, she showed no visible injuries or marks. This is unexpected considering the fight she described. Guests at the motel informed the police that they didn't hear any gunshots or signs of a struggle. At the time Cooke confronted her, Franklin was on the phone with the motel owner, who testified that he heard a lot of the struggle on the other end of the call. Crime scene images seemed to show injuries on Cooke's body. Singer Etta James, who saw Cooke's body at his funeral, mentioned in her memoir that Cooke's head was almost severed from his shoulders. That was how severely he had been beaten. His hands were broken and crushed. They attempted to hide it with makeup, but she could see huge bruises on his head. No woman with a broomstick could have caused that level of beating on a strong, grown man. The inconsistencies have caused many to speculate if Cooke was murdered elsewhere by someone else before his body was left at the Hacienda Motel. There have been rumors about the details surrounding Cooke's passing. Some pointed fingers at his business manager, Alan Klein, a well-known ruthless figure in the music industry, suggesting that he wanted to take control of Cooke's fortune. A lot of the confusion about Cooke's passing came from the fact that the LAPD only did a superficial investigation, leading many to feel that the authorities were trying to cover it up. Cooke's friend Muhammad Ali remarked that if Cooke had been Frank Sinatra, the Beatles, or Ricky Nelson, the FBI would be on the case. Edelin explained that the situation was straightforward. He stated that the LAPD didn't care at all about Sam Cooke, or else they couldn't have been less interested in conducting a complete and thorough investigation. He believes this reflects the racism that was present at every level of the police force, stating that under Chief William H. Parker, the LAPD had a harsh approach towards minorities, plain and simple. It didn't matter what specific law was broken, it was all about appearance. That's just the way it was. Edelin points out that even Cooke's fame in show business didn't earn him any respect from the police in Los Angeles. He stated that sadly, even though Sam Cooke was a well-known figure, they wouldn't have cared much. The reality was that a black man had been killed at a brothel. Their attitude would have been one of indifference. They could have conducted a real thorough investigation, but it wasn't seen as important enough for the LAPD to bother. There was no empathy, no concern. They might have even been pleased that he was gone. Edelin also suggested that there could have been involvement from an even higher law enforcement agency, the FBI. He mentioned that considering the FBI's stance on minorities and civil rights back then, they could have definitely had an impact. He pointed out Cooke's connections with other prominent black personalities like Muhammad Ali, who was known as Cassius Clay at the time, and Malcolm X, both of whom were being watched by the agency, led by the famously paranoid J. Edgar Hoover. Edelin remembered that Sam was really involved in civil rights, and they know the FBI was very interested in Muhammad Ali, and they also know that Sam Cooke built a strong friendship with Ali. During that period, his bond with Ali made him a person of interest. These ideas stretched the limits of what seems believable, but a racist conspiracy against Cooke might not be as crazy as it appears. A determined black man's significant influence in a mostly white entertainment industry was seen by some as a danger. While not as overtly political as Ali or Malcolm X, Cooke leveraged his musical influence to advocate for equality. The chaos in Cooke's life didn't begin the night he passed. It had been brewing for years, even in the most intimate corners of his world. Let's uncover the marriage that shook the King of Soul, the scandalous side of Cooke's love life. Cooke was married 2 times. His first wife was singer-dancer Dolores Elizabeth Milligan Cooke, who adopted the stage name Dee Dee Mohawk in 1953. They split in 1958. Tragically, she passed on in a car accident in Fresno, California. Even though Cooke and Milligan were no longer together, he covered the costs of his ex-wife's funeral. In 1958, Cooke wed his second wife, Barbara Campbell, in Chicago, with his father officiating the ceremony. They had 3 kids, Linda, Tracy, and Vincent. Barbara Campbell Cooke, who passed away at 85, was married to both Sam Cooke and Bobby Womack, 2 of the most renowned soul singers of the 20th century. However, neither marriage brought her much happiness, only heartache and sorrow. Born with a twin sister in Chicago, Barbara Campbell was just a 13-year-old high school student when she met and fell for the 18-year-old Cooke in Chicago's South Side. She was 17 when she got pregnant by him, and by then, Cooke, with his movie star charm, was attracting many female fans as the lead singer of the gospel group, the Soul Stirrers. As a young mother, Barbara juggled 2 jobs to take care of herself and her baby, while her on and off relationship with the star continued. However, Cooke was often unfaithful, having several children out of wedlock. When he left her, Barbara got involved with pimps and substance dealers and briefly married a businessman named Fred Diddy Dennis, partly to make Cooke jealous. It was rumored that she became pregnant by Dennis but had an abortion when Cooke came back into her life. After getting married in 1959, they had 2 more kids and moved to Hollywood. By then, Cooke had become a soul superstar, and Barbara tried to match his intellectual and social goals by reading James Baldwin and joining a group of charitable African-American women called the Regalettes. However, as Cooke's affairs continued, they started to live more separate lives. In 1963, their 3rd child, Vincent, tragically drowned in their swimming pool at just 18 months old, and the next year, Cooke was shot dead at the Hacienda Motel. Cooke's family, who were very religious, never liked Barbara. Peter Guralnick, Cooke's biographer, mentioned that they thought she was a gold digger, and as the couple drifted apart, Barbara was dating a bartender when her husband was unalived. They viewed her as neglectful, suggesting that if Cooke had been happy at home, he wouldn't have cheated. 3 months after Cooke's passing, when Barbara married Bobby Womack, who was a protege of Cooke's and part of the R&B group the Valentinos, their marriage caused a huge scandal, not just with their families but also in the music industry and among Cooke's devastated fans. They received hate mail, including a package with a baby doll in a coffin, and were booed when they showed up at concerts. Womack, who had just gained fame when the Rolling Stones covered his hit It's All Over Now, which became their first #1, suddenly found himself shunned. Unable to get a new recording deal, he left the Valentinos, started working as a backup for other artists, and turned to taking substances. His career started to pick up again in the late 1960s, but during that time he began an intimate relationship with his wife's oldest child, Linda, who was a teenager at that point. When Barbara discovered them in bed together, she shot Womack. However, according to him, the bullet merely grazed his temple, and she was never charged for it. They ended up divorcing that same year. Linda later wrote Womack's 1972 hit, Woman's Gotta Have It, toured with him, and began to make progress as a songwriter before marrying Womack's younger brother, Cecil. Together, they created the successful recording duo, Womack and Womack. Barbara Campbell Cooke and Bobby Womack had a son named Vincent, after the baby who had drowned. Tragically, he took his own life in 1986 at the age of 21 after battling substance and alcohol issues. It's not surprising that many of those involved didn't stay in touch. Womack mentioned in his 2006 memoir, Bobby Womack Midnight Mover, that he doesn't speak to Barbara anymore, Linda doesn't talk to her, and hasn't spoken to Cecil for years. No one speaks to no one. There was some level of family reconciliation in 1986 when Sam Cooke was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Barbara stood next to his father to accept the award on his behalf. She told Peter Guralnick that everybody wants a happy ending. That was the way she saw it. Not much is known about Barbara Campbell Cooke's later life, and there was no public announcement regarding her passing. A family friend was the one who confirmed her passing. Cooke's marriage may have stirred controversy, but it was his music that cemented his place in history. Let's take a look into the career that made Sam Cooke the King of Soul. In 1950, Cooke took over as the lead singer of his gospel group, the Soul Stirrers, replacing gospel tenor R.H. Harris. The group had signed with Specialty Records at that time. Their first song recorded under Cooke's direction was Jesus Gave Me Water in 1950. They also produced gospel tracks like Peace in the Valley, How Far Am I from Canaan, component placement Jesus Paid the Debt, and One More River, among many others, with some being written by him. Cooke was often recognized for introducing gospel music to a younger audience, especially girls who would rush to the stage whenever the Soul Stirrers performed just to catch a glimpse of him. Cooke had 30 hits in the U.S., top 40 from 1957 to 1964, and 3 more after his passing. Some of his major hits include You Send Me, A Change Is Gonna Come, Cupid, Chain Gang, Wonderful World, Another Saturday Night, and Twistin' the Night Away, which was one of his best-selling albums. He was also one of the first modern black artists and songwriters to focus on the business aspect of his music career. Cooke established a record label and a publishing company to further his work as a singer and songwriter. Additionally, he was actively involved in the civil rights movement. Sam Cooke's debut pop/soul single was Lovable, a remake of the gospel song Wonderful. It was released under the name Dale Cooke to avoid upsetting his gospel fans, as there was a strong stigma against gospel artists crossing over to secular music. However, it was clear to everyone that it was him. His unique voice was unmistakable. Art Rupe, the head of Specialty Records, which was the label for the Soul Stirrers, allowed Cooke to record secular music under his real name, but he was not pleased with the direction Cooke and producer Bumps Blackwell were taking. Rupe wanted Cooke's secular music to sound like that of another specialty artist, Little Richard. When Rupe unexpectedly entered a recording session and heard Cooke singing Gershwin, he became quite upset. This led to a disagreement between Rupe and Blackwell, resulting in Cooke and Blackwell leaving the label. The song Lovable wasn't a huge success or a total failure, but it showed that Cooke had a lot of potential for the future. Even though gospel music was popular, Cooke noticed that its audience mainly came from low-income rural areas, so he wanted to expand his reach. Interestingly, Cooke later revealed that his father, who was a pastor, was the least expected person to encourage him to pursue a career in pop music. Cooke recalled his father's words. He said that it was not just about what he sings, but that God blessed him with a voice and musical talent, and the real purpose of that gift is to share it and bring joy to others. He then adopted the name Sam Cooke to start fresh in the pop scene. In 1975, Sam Cooke made an appearance on ABC's The Guy Mitchell Show. That same year, he signed a contract with Keane Records. His first hit, You Send Me, was released as the B-side of Summertime, and it spent 6 weeks at #1 on the Billboard R&B chart. The song also did well on the mainstream charts, hitting #1 on the Billboard Pop chart for 3 weeks. This success boosted his earnings from $200 a week to over $5,000 a week. In 1958, Cooke took the stage at the famous Cavalcade of Jazz concert organized by Leon Heflin at the Shrine Auditorium on August 3rd. Other big names like Little Willie John, Ray Charles, Ernie Freeman, and Bo Rambo were also performing. Sammy Davis Jr. was present to crown the winner of the Miss Cavalcade of Jazz Beauty Contest, and the event showcased the top 4 disc jockeys from Los Angeles. In January 1960, Cooke signed with RCA Victor, receiving a $100,000 advance, around $1.1 million in 2024, from the label's producers, Hugo and Luigi. One of his first singles with RCA Victor was Chain Gang, which climbed to #2 on the Billboard Pop chart. This was just the beginning, as he followed it up with more hits like Sad Mood, Cupid, Bring It On Home to Me, featuring Lou Rawls on backing vocals, Another Saturday Night, and Twistin' the Night Away. In 1961, Cooke launched his own record label, SAR Records, alongside J.W. Alexander and his manager Roy Crane. The label quickly added artists like the Sims Twins, the Valentinos, which included Bobby Womack and his brothers, Mel Carter, and Johnny Taylor. Cooke also established a publishing imprint and a management company called Kegs. Like many R&B musicians of his era, Cooke concentrated on singles. He achieved 29 top 40 hits on the pop charts and even more on the R&B charts. A talented songwriter, Cooke penned most of the songs he recorded and was involved in some of the song arrangements. Despite primarily releasing singles, he put out a well-received blues-influenced LP entitled Nightbeat and his most critically acclaimed studio album, Ain't That Good News, which included 5 singles. Cooke entered into a 5-year agreement for Alan Klein to manage CAG's music and SAR Records, appointing him as his manager. Klein negotiated a 5-year contract with RCA Victor, where a holding company named Tracy LT, after Cooke's daughter, owned by Klein and managed by J.W. Alexander, would produce and own Cooke's recordings. In return for 6% royalty payments and payments for the recording sessions, RCA Victor would receive exclusive distribution rights. For tax purposes, Cooke opted for preferred stock in Tracy instead of an upfront cash advance. He would get cash advances of $100,000 for the following 2 years, plus an extra $75,000 for each of the 2 option years if the deal was completed. Cooke is widely regarded as one of the greatest singers and most skilled vocalists in history. His tenor voice was incredibly pure, big, velvety, and expansive, with a tone that was instantly recognizable. Cooke had remarkable pitch, and his singing style was effortlessly soulful. He could reach as high C without losing any purity or volume, and his upper mid-range had a unique rasp to it. Cooke's vocal style was very versatile, taking on a classical sound in jazz and pop songs while still keeping his signature soulful vibe in R&B, gospel, and soul music. Cooke's delivery covered a wide range of emotions, from playful expressiveness that engaged listeners to mellow somberness for reflection, and in A Change Is Gonna Come, he showcased profound soulfulness. During live performances, he often played around with notes and scales, experimenting with melodies and his enunciation, even improvising entire songs. Later in his career, Cooke also started to deliver highly charged versions of his songs. Cooke's impact on soul music played a significant role in the success of artists like Aretha Franklin, Bobby Womack, Al Green, Curtis Mayfield, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and Billy Preston, while also bringing attention to the works of Otis Redding and James Brown. According to AllMusic biographer Bruce Eder, Cooke was considered the inventor of soul music and had an amazing natural singing voice, along with a smooth, effortless style that has yet to be matched.